Be'ezus Hashem, today's daf is Masechta Shavuos Daf Yutes, number 19. And we're going to start from Daf Yutes Amid Beis. But before we do that, let's just review in the Mishnah. The Mishnah is located further back, let's say on Daf Yudalet Amid Beis. Just to review, that there is an opinion, there are two opinions in the Mishnah that you need to discuss. One is Rabbi Eliezer Oimer. Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Kiva seem to say the same thing in the Mishnah. In our Mishnah, we discussed that in order to be Mechayev carbon oil of Yerid, and by the way, today's the last day that we will be discussing the Tuma aspect of the carbon oil of Yerid, which means that if a person knows that he's Tameh and he eats kachim, but he knows that he's tummy, then he forgot that he was tummy. He totally forgot, or he wasn't paying attention, then ate kachim. Or he knows that he's tummy and went in and forgot that he's tummy, went into the Beis Hamikdash. So the Mishnah says Yechayev a carbon oil of Yerid. But then the Mishnah says there's two more ways that you could be chayev a carbon oil of Yerid. Not that you forgot that you were tummy, but you forgot what you were doing. You know you're tummy, but you don't know that the piece of meat that you're eating is kachim. Or you don't know that you're tummy, but you don't know the place that you're entering is the Beis Hamikdash. Or you're thinking you were strolling in the park. So in that case, when you realize your error, you have to bring a carbon oil of a yared. That's what the Mishnah is. This is our whole Mishnah. Yiyas Tuma, which is Shtayim Shehin Arba. Comes along Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Kiva. And they say, Rabbi Eliezer Oimer, Hasheretz v'nela memeno. The Torah tells you in the Psukim, here's the Psukim, right? Here's the Psukim that you have in Chumash. It's kedai to just review the Psukim at the end of Parshas Vayikra, where the Torah tells you that if a person, oy nefesh, if a person touches any tamei, right, and v'nela memeni, and he forgot that he didn't pay attention that he touched, and he ate kachim, right? Vanilla mimen. It gives you two examples. If you forgot, you touched a person that was tamei, vanilla mimen, and you forgot about it. V'hu yada, and then you realized that v'ashem that you did a sin. The Torah doesn't describe what sin you did, but I'm telling you, it means you eat kachim or you went into the Beis Hamikdash. So comes along Rabbi Eliezer Oimer. Rabbi Eliezer says hasheretz vanilla mimenu, helam sheretz chayev. You chayev a carbon oil of a yored if you forgot that you became tamei by a sheretz. The ein chayev al helam mikdash, but you're not chayev if you didn't remember that you're entering the Beis Hamikdash. So not like the Tanakama. Rabbi Eliezer says there are only two types of averes: forgetting that you were tamei and eating kachim or going into the Beis Hamikdash. But if you forgot that it's kachim and you forgot that it's the Beis Hamikdash, but you know you're tamei, you're not chayev a carbon oil of yared. And comes along Rabbi Kiva, it says the same thing. Rabbi Kiva Oimer, v'nela menuhu tamei. Rabbi Kiva says, you forgot that you were tamei. Al helam tuma chayev, ve'in chayev al helam migdash. You're chayev only if you forgot that you were tamei. But you're not liable a carbon oil of yared if you forgot that it's the Beis Hamikdash. And Rabbi Shmuel Oimer, Rabbi Shmuel has a different opinion in this whole matter. We're always learning that in order to be mechayev on Tumas Migdash v'Kedashav, on a carbon oil of yared, you have to have a yediyah betchila. You have to know you were tamei or it was the Beis Hamikdash, then forget about it, and then remember it at the end. That's everybody's opinion. Rabbi Shmuel says, "V'nela v'nelam shtei pamin l'chayev al helam tuma al helam migdash." He says because it says v'nelam means you're chayev on forgetting that it's tamei and forgetting that it's the Beis Hamikdash. But we're going to learn that Rabbi Shmuel doesn't need that you need to know in the beginning that you were tamei. So that's we'll discuss Rabbi Shmuel soon. So let's go to our Gemara over here. 35. Okay. So the Gemara is, we're going to start from Rabbi Eliezer Oimer. Rabbi Eliezer Oimer, about 3 lines from where it gets line wide on Daf Yud Ches Amud Beis. Rabbi Eliezer Oimer, Hasheretz v'nela memenu. So, and Rabbi Eliezer says that on Helam Tuma, you chayev a carbon oil of yared. And Rabbi Kiva says the same thing. So the Gemara asks the question, my benayo, what would be the practical difference between Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Akiva? They both seem to say the same thing, although they learn it differently from the psukim. So Amar Chizki, Rabbi Chizki says, sheretz nevela ik benayo. Do you have to, the act, how you became Tameh, do you have to know in the beginning how you became Tameh? Was it through a sheretz, or did you touch a dead animal? Reb Lezer says, in order to be b'chai b'karbon oil v'yared b'inan, you need to know adi yoda. You have to know factually. Ibis itme. If you became tamei through a sheretz, ibn avela itme. Either you became tamei through an avela, but you have to know how you became tamei. Rabbi Kiva holds loy b'inam adi yoda. You don't need to know precisely how you became tamei. Even the yada the itma ba'olam, as long as you know a general idea that you became tamei, loitzorach, you don't need to know anything further. Ibn sheretz itmi, ibn avel itmi. You don't need to know if you became tamei through a sheretz or through an avela. It doesn't matter. So that's the difference. Rabbi Kiva is more, let's say, would you say lenient? He requires you to bring a carbon if you knew that you were tamei, but you don't need to know exactly how you became tamei. Ula said the same idea. The difference between Rabbi Kiva and Rabbi Eliezer is, do you have to know how you became tamei? Now, where did Ula say this? Say this concept that sheretz unavela ika benayu. The Ula asked a contradiction. The Rabbi Eliezer or the Rabbi Eliezer. Umashani. And he asked the question, a contradiction between the words of Rabbi Eliezer against the words of Rabbi Eliezer, and he gave an answer. Umi Amar Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Ula said out loud, did Rabbi Eliezer say in our Mishnah, you need to know how you became tamei, either through a sheretz or an avela. That's the only way you'll be liable for a carbon. You have to know precisely how you became tamei in the beginning. Uraminhi, then I'll ask you a contradiction. Amar Rabbi Eliezer says manashach. What's the difference? Chayev. If you don't really know, you chayev a carbon. You ate something in front of you. You don't know whether it was noiser or chaylev. Chaylev is the fats. Noiser was leftover kachim. Either way, if you did it by mistake, you chayev a carbon. Chaylev achal chayev, noiser achal chayev. It doesn't matter if it was chaylev or noiser, and even if you don't know, as long as you know you did an aveira, you chayev a carbon. Another example: Shabbos chilul chayev, Yom Kippurim chilul chayev. You know you violated a holy day. You don't know if you violated, was it Shabbos or Yom Kippur? You still chayev to bring a carbon chatas. Ishti nidei baal chayev, achoisei baal chayev. You don't know whether you had relations with your wife when she's a nida, or you have relations with your sister. Either way, you did an avera with relations, and therefore you chayev a carbon. So that's what Rabbi Eliezer holds. It doesn't matter. You don't have to know precisely the avera. As long as you did an avera, you have to bring a carbon chatas. Amalei Rabbi Shua says, Hareyu Oima. Rabbi Shua says, you have to know precisely what avera you did, that avera that you did, in order to bring a carbon chatas. Until you know exactly how you did what you did. So ashachata ba, that teaches you that concept. So therefore, how could Rabbi Eliezer in our mission say you have to know precisely how you became tamei? And when it comes to carbon chatas, Rabbi Eliezer was lenient and says you don't have to know precisely what avera you did. Umashani, and the answer is simple. Hasa, by carbon chatas, it says ashachata ba, ashachata vehevi. Whatever avera you did, vehevi. Amar Achmana chet kolshu. No matter what avera you did, even if you don't know what the avera was, you have to bring in carbon chatas. Hacha, over here, the Torah tells you became tamei, right? The Torah gives you the case that if you became tamei through something, and then the Torah was more detailed and tells you, the Torah gives you an example. Suppose you became tamei by touching a dead sheretz. Why did the Torah give you an example? If it already told you became tamei. Shma mina, from here, the way the Torah worded it, then in order to be mechayev a carbon oil of yared to be inen ad yadi ibesheretz itme even veil itme. I need to know precisely how he became tummy. Was it through a sheretz or was it through an avela? Now the Gemara says Rabbi Kiva, who does not need to know precisely how you became tummy, is chayev a carbon oil of yared anyway. So he says oy benivla sheretz tummy is not extra; it's just like thrown in there because ID. The boy, we go to Amid Aleph. The boy lemichta behema b'chayik lik the Rebbe. The Torah had to write in this pasuk, okay, oy benivlas chaya tmeya, oy benivlas behema tmeya. The Torah had to write that for a drasha of Rebbe that teaches that the what thing that you did wrong was you ate kachim. But since the Torah already had to write these two words, chaya and behema, so then the Torah wrote sheretz. Right, so it's not so extra. Kosav nami sheretz. Kedutane be Rabbi Shmuel. Kol parsha shnema v'nishnas. A parsha that was said over and repeated. Lo nishnas ela b'shvil davash neschadshpo. The Torah repeated it, even though it added extra words, just to teach you the novel idea. So the Torah wrote words, and then the Torah, threw in extra words, but it's not something that you could be darshan. Therefore, Rabbi Kiva says that you don't make a drush and say, oh, you have to precisely know if you became tamei through a sheretz or the novela. As long as you know the idea that you became tamei and you did something wrong by going into the Beis Hamikdash, you chayav a carbon oil of yared. But Rabbi Eliezer says, no, you have to know precisely how you became tamei, and then, and only then, you'll be chayav a carbon oil of yared. So the Gemara says, but Rabbi Eliezer holds by any other carbon chatas, you don't need to know if you did the Aveira on Yom Kippur or Shabbos, as long as you know you violated the holy day, you chayav a carbon chatas. So Rabbi Leza, Haiba, my Avidle, but doesn't the Torah tell you by carbon chatas you have to know exactly what Aveira you did in order to be chayav a carbon chatas? Answers the Gemara, like Rabbi Yeshua Darshan, no, Prat, that's teaching you, limiting it, libisasik. The Torah is telling you chayav a carbon chatas if you make a mistake. But let's say you don't make a mistake. You were busy doing something else. I'll give you an example. You were lifting your hand to fix your yarmulke, and you accidentally turned on the light. Well, that you weren't intending to turn on the light, and you weren't in the act of turning on the light, thinking that you're allowed to turn on the light on Shabbos. So therefore, that doesn't bring a carbon chatas. Rashi gives you a good example over here. It's a little funny example. Rashi says a masasek means, first of all, Rashi says if you had intention to cut something that, let's say a cucumber that was, off the ground, but not realizing it, it was still connected to the ground. Or Rashi says a masasek that you're not chayiv a carbon, he went into bed, the skava leishta. He went to bed to have relations with his wife. And his own sister was in the bed. V'nishmata ishtoi, and his wife fell off the bed. Uba achoisoi takta, and he had relations with his own sister instead. So his intention was only to have relations with his wife, not with his sister. So therefore that is not chayiv. What is chayiv is if you're trying to cut something that you thought was tolish, the actual thing that was tolish, that was disconnected, and found out that it was connected. Or you thought today was a weekday, and you thought this is, or you thought that there's no issur of turning a light on Shabbos. Or Rashi says, if you had relations with your sister, but you thought your sister was your wife, so that's only then you'll be chayiv chatas. So that's the machlekes between Rabbi Lezer, Rabbi Yeshua, and Rabbi Lezer and the Rabbi Akiva, according to the understanding, or the first understanding. Rabbi Yochanan says there is no machlekes between Rabbi Lezer and Rabbi Akiva. Mashmo is darshan ika benayu. There is just the way to darshan the pasuk, the source. V'chein Amar Rabbi Sheshes, Mashmo is darshan ika benayu. Rabbi Sheshes machler Rabbi Lezer, Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Lezer. Rabbi Sheshes wasn't careful to precisely say who said what. It could be Rabbi Lezer, it could be Rabbi Akiva. He mixed up the people, the names in the Mishnah, because there is no difference between them. Both hold on Helem Tumi Yechayev and not on Helem Migdash, but there is no difference. Both had a different way to come to the same opinion from the Mishnah, but there is no precise differences between Rabbi Lezer and Rabbi Akiva. That's Rabbi Yochanan's opinion. Now, we're going to finish here. Boyaminei Rava Merav Nachman. Rava asked the question from Rav Nachman. According to Rabbi Lezer and Rabbi Akiva, you and Helam Migdash, you're not chayiv a carbon oil of yared. Helam Tuma, you chayiv a carbon oil of yared. Let's say a guy became tamei, then he forgot that he was tamei, and ate kachim. He knew it was kachim, and then forgot that it was kachim. He knew it was the base of Migdash and forgot it was the base of Migdash. So basically, he had a helam zemizeh b'yadai. He forgot Tuma, and he had a helam Migdash at the same time. According to Reb Lezer and Yeshua, according to Reb Lezer and Rabbi Kiva, are you going to be chayiv a carbon katas maho? What would be in that case? Amalei. So Rav Nachman answered, "Hare helam tuma biyada v'chayev." You already forgot that it was tamei. So helam tuma makes you liable for a carbon oil of yared. So the Gemara says, "Adarab." But let's say the opposite. Hare him migdash biyada. You have a helam migdash in the equation over here. So potter, you should be potter. So what is it? Do we follow the helam tuma or do we follow helam migdash? Amar Rav Yashi says, no, we'll see. Chazinin, we'll see. If they told him, oh, you're doing an Avera because you're Tameh, and then he stopped the Avera, so we see that the reason why he stopped was because of Helam Tumah. Then you're going to be liable of a carbon. Even Migdash Kaparish, if we told him, oh, it's the base of Migdash, and that caused him to stop doing the Avera, he ran out of the base of Migdash. Hare Helam Migdash Biyadi, it was because of the Helam Migdash, and that was caused the Avera. Upater, your pater. So the Gemara says that's not true because they're all both linked to each other. Amalei Ravinu Ravashi, Klum Parish Migdash Elam Mishum Tuma. The whole reason why he left the base of Migdash is because even if they told him that it's the base of Migdash, he realized it was Tameh, and that's why he shouldn't be there. Klum Parish Mituma El Mishum Migdash. Even if they told him that it's your Tameh, the only reason why he left, because he also figured out he's in the base of Migdash. El Eloishno, it doesn't matter. If you have Helam Tuma and Helam Migdash, you're going to be potter from a carbon oil of yared. The only way you're going to be chayiv a carbon oil of yared, and this is the bottom line, the only way you're going to be chayiv a carbon oil of yared, according to Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Akiva, is the following. A guy knows he's tamei, and then didn't pay attention that he was tamei, and walked into the base of Migdash. So he knows he's walking into the base of Migdash. Only then, and then he realized after he left, oh, I walked into the base of Migdash. Then you'll chayiv a carbon oil of yared. But any other way, you're going to be potter from a carbon oil. So even if he walked in and then forgot that he was in the base of Migdash, even if he forgot that he was tamei, he's also not going to be chayiv a carbon oil of yared. Nu Gemara, Tanu Rabbanan, the rabbis taught, Shnei Shvilim, a guy has two roads. He has, let's say, two roads. That echad tamei v'echad tar. One is tamei and one is tar. One has like a grave in the middle of the road, and one is tar. So the halach b'rishon, he went into, but we don't know which one is tamei and which one is tar. The halach b'rishon, and he went on the first road. V'lay nichnas, didn't go into the base of Migdash, but now he's a suffix tamei. But sheni, then he went on the second road. So for sure now he's tamei, either because of the first road or the second road. The nichnas, and then v'nichnas. So then chayiv. Why? Because he chayiv, because for sure he became tamei. He's for sure tamei. So that's yediyah b'tchila. Chalach b'risha. Let's say he went in the first road. V'nichnas. Then he went into the base of Migdash. So when he went into the first road, he was only a suffix tama. He's a v'shana v'tavel. And then they sprayed him the paraduma waters again on the third day and again on the sixth day, the taval, and then he went to the mikvah. So now he was tar. Then he went into the second one and the second road, and he violated that. He's chayiv a carbon oil of yared. But the problem is that each time that he went into the base of Migdash, he's not. He knows he was tamei, but he doesn't know if he's for sure tamei. He knows he's a suffix tamei. So what the Gemara is calling that a yediyah suffix. He knows that he's a suffix tamei. So nevertheless, that's called a yediyah according to the Tanakama, and he's chayiv. He's chayiv a carbon oil of yared. Rab Shimon paiter. Rab Shimon says you're potter. Why you're potter? Because only if you know you're for sure tamei, then you're chayiv a carbon oil of yared. But if you only know that you're a suffix tamei, Rab Shimon holds you're not chayiv a carbon oil of yared. Rab Shimon ben Yehuda paita mekulam. Mishum Rab Shimon. Shimon ben Yehuda had in the name of Rab Shimon, he had from again Sam Rab Shimon ben Yechoy, that you're patuf in all cases, even the first case. Now the first case is a little strange. The first case you went into 2 roads, and you didn't retire yourself, so you're for sure tamei. And nevertheless, and you went into the base of Mikdash, Rab Shimon says you're not chayiv a carbon oil of yared. So the Gemara says bekulam. We go to Amid Beis. Even the first case, he's for sure tamei, so that's a vaday tama. Amar Rava says like this: the first case, according to the Rabbi Shimon ben Yehuda, we're going to explain it this way. The first case really is talking about Kegon Shahalak B'Rishayt. He went through the first road. Uvusha'a Shahalak B'Sheni. Then he's a suffix tamei, and then when he went to the second row. To the second road, he forgot that he went on the first row. So he really is a svadei tamei because he went on both roads, but he forgot that he went on the first road. So he thinks to himself that he's only a suffix tamei. The haviale mixus yediyah, it's a partial knowledge because he got it wrong. He's not a suffix toma, he's a vadei toma, but he thinks he's a suffix toma. And this is what they're arguing about. Tanakama holds, and this is both the first version of the Tanakama and the first version of Rab Shimon, that the first case, Amrin, we say, Mixas Yediyah Kachol Yediyah, that the Mixas Yediyah, just the partial knowledge, is as if you know completely, and therefore you are exempt from a carbon oil of yared. Rab Shimon holds, Lo Yabina Mixas Yediyah Kachol Yediyah. We don't say just because you know partially, that's called a Yediyah B'tchila. In order to be chayiv a carbon oil of yared, according to Rab Shimon ben Yehuda's version, is you have to really know that you are tamei. You can't even be a suffix that you are tamei. That's not called a knowledge, and you can't even be a partial knowledge. Kolshkein a partial knowledge. You have to vade know that you are tamei. So the Mishnah says. Then we continue with the Brisa. Halach Berisha v'nichnas v'hiza v'shana v'tova chazav sheni v'nichnas chayiv Rab Shimon pater. Now we're going to explain the Tanakama. A guy went on the first row, then went into the base of Mikdash. Then he retired himself with the Para Aduma waters, and then went to the second road, and then so he's chayiv a carbon oil of yared because he had a yediyah sveika, and it turned out he was tamei. See, each time he was only a suffix yediyah, but still that's called a yediyah enough to require you a carbon oil of yared. So the Gemara says, "V'may chayiv suffix yediyah." That's a suffix yediyah. That's in doubt. It's not a for sure knowledge. If you ask him, "Are you for sure tamei?" Each time he'll say, "No, I'm not sure if I'm tamei." But nevertheless, that's enough to be mechayiv and a carbon oil of yared. Rabbi Yochanan said, "Kan aser suffix yediyah k'yediyah." By carbon oil of yared, you don't need a yediyah batchila to know for sure. Even if you know a suffix yediyah, that's enough to make you chayiv a carbon oil of yared. That's Rabbi Yochanan's opinion. But you for sure have to be tamei, but your knowledge is a doubtful knowledge. How is your knowledge a doubtful knowledge? Because you will matire yourself after the first row. When you walked into the first row, you're 50-50 tamei. Then you matire yourself. But you went into the base of Mikdash after going into the first road. Then you will matire yourself. Then you went into the second road. So now you have 50-50 tamei, suffix, and you went into the base of Mikdash. So definitely you were metamei the base of Mikdash, but your knowledge at the time was only a suffix yediyah. Rabbi Yochanan holds that's considered like a good knowledge. Rab Shlaka says, how many our brisa goes? Rab Shmuel, that brisa is Rab Shmuel. The amal lo yedin b'yim v'tchila. You don't need to know precisely in the beginning. You don't know, and you don't need to know. So that's the way Rosh Lakish learned. Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Rosh Lakish, Rab Shlakish. And we asked the contradiction between Rabbi Yochanan, and Rosh Lakish or Rosh Lakish. The time we learned in the brisa, Ochel safek chaylev v'noida. Guy ate a safek chaylev v'noida, and then he knew he ate safek chaylev. So he's chayiv an oshim toli, right? But you don't know if he ate chaylev. He ate a piece of meat. He didn't know if it's chaylev or basar. Suffolk chaylev v'noida. Then he ate a suffix of fat meat, of treifa meat, and then now he knows again. So how many carbon ocean talis should he bring? Rebbe says, Kshem shemevi chatas al kol echad ve'echad, just like you bring separate chatases, if you do multiple averas, even if it's the same avera, but you had a yediyah that separates them. Kach maybe ashantali al kol echad ve'echad. You'll have to bring 2 carbon ashantalis, one for the first safek chayla that you ate, and one for the second one. Rab Shimon ben Yehuda, Rab Lazar, Rab Shimon, Rab Shimon, eina meve elatol asham echad. You only have to make 1 carbon ashantali. Shnema ashigasa ashashaga. By the mistakes that you made a mistake, you have to bring an asham tali. The Torah says that if you did a lot of averis, but you could be yaitse with just bringing 1 carbon asham tali. Now, in explaining Rebbe that you have to bring 2 different carbon asham talis, Rish Lakish says, Kan Shana Rebbe taught us yediyas sveikas mischalkas lechatas. The fact that you know something in doubt, that separates it for a separate asham talis, and yediyas sveikas would also separate for carbon chatases, that you'll require separate carbon chatases. Rabbi Yochanan, no. In order to separate 2 chatois, you have to have a for sure knowledge in between that you did an avera. So that only separates, requiring you to bring 2 carbon chatas. Kach yediyas suffik mischalakas lashamas. By Arashim, a yediyas suffik would be enough. But according to Rabbi Yochanan, in order to divide up a chatas, you need a yediyas vadei. So the question is, Rabbi Yochanan seems to say yediyas suffik is not like a yediyas vadei. And in our by Tumas Migdash Ukudashev, Rabbi Yochanan just got through saying yediyas suffik is like a yediyas vadei. Answers the Gemara, Bishlamed Rabbi Yochanan like kasha. It's not a difficulty. Kan asu v'loy b'chol ha'Torah kula asu. Only by a regular carbon chatas we say a yediyas vadai is a good yediyah, and not a yediyah suffik, because hacha who the like, because by Tumas Migdash v'Kudashav the like sivi behedya bivanelim. It doesn't say you have to know. The Torah just says v'nelim you ignored, but it doesn't. The Torah does not describe your original knowledge, your knowledge. So it could be the Torah says that even a yediyah suffik is considered a good knowledge. So who the asi? But in regular carbon chatas, the ksiv oy hoide elav, you have to actually know. Then a yediyah suffik is not a good yediyah. Yediyah mal yasabi'ini. You need an actually good yediyah. Only by a regular carbon chatas you have to have a good knowledge. A suffik knowledge is not a good knowledge. But by Tumas Migdash of Kedashav, even a suffik knowledge is considered a good knowledge. That's the way Rabbi Yochanan learns. Ella, and finally we'll end off. Rabbi Shlakish, Adam Moikim Lo Rabbi Shmuel, Noikimik Rabbi. Why did he say that brisa goes according to Rabbi Shmuel, who doesn't require yediyah betchila? He could say that brisa, the original brisa that we were discussing with the 2 rows, that goes according to Rebbe, who holds a yediyah suffix is like a good yediyah. Answers the Gemara, Hakamash Malan. Rabbi Lakish wanted to teach you something else about Rabbi Shmuel. For sure that brisa could go like Rebbe. Rabbi Shmuel, Loi Boyi yediyah betchila. Rabbi Shmuel is a new chiddush of Tumas Migdash Kedashev. He's one that says you don't need to know yediyah betchila and halama and yediyah b'soif. Rabbi Shmuel says you don't need yediyah betchila in order to require Tumas Migdash Kedashev to get a carbon oil of yared. So the Gemara says, Pshita, I know that. The loy boya, middle yashle kroy venelam, the b'chayev al hel migdash. Rabbi Shmuel used the 2 venelams that you saw in the pasuk. One is to teach you that halamas helam tuma yechayev, and one's to teach you helam migdash yechayev. So I don't have another venelam to teach you yediyah betchila. So of course Rabbi Shmuel doesn't require you a yediyah betchila. And says the Gemara, Mahu the same I would have thought, Ki Lesle Mikroy. Rabbi Shmuel doesn't require you yediyah betchila because he has no proof from the psukim. But maybe Rabbi Shmuel of a Migmara Islay, maybe Rabbi Shmuel had a tradition at Kalachal Moshe Messinai that you do need a yediyah betchila. Mashmalan, that Rabbi Shmuel is of the opinion you don't even need a yediyah betchila. So So this ends the first 2 prakam of Shavuos, which has nothing to do with Masech the Shavuos. tomorrow, Mitzvah Shem, we start the Masechta of Shavuos, what we came to discuss. What happens if someone swears falsely? Okay.